close your eyes for a moment. Think about the room you're in right now. Maybe you're lying in bed, the weight of your blanket pressing gently against your chest. Maybe you hear the distant hum of traffic outside, or the soft whisper of wind against your window. Everything seems normal, safe, predictable. But what if I told you that at this very moment, invisible threads are woven through every interaction you've had today? What if I told you that manipulation isn't some distant concept reserved for criminals and con artists, but rather a fundamental aspect of human psychology that touches your life every single day? The word manipulation comes from the Latin manipulus, meaning handful. To hold something in your hand, to shape it, to control it. In psychology, manipulation is the art of influencing someone's thoughts, emotions, and behaviors for your own benefit, often without their conscious awareness. It's a shadow language, spoken beneath the surface of everyday conversation. And tonight, we're going to decode that language together. We're going to explore 120 techniques that manipulators use, from the most subtle to the most devastating. This isn't just an academic exercise. This is a map of the invisible battlefield where human relationships unfold. Let's begin with the foundation. Before we can understand specific techniques, we need to understand the architecture of manipulation itself. Imagine your mind as a castle. It has walls, gates, guards. Manipulators don't storm the castle with armies. They find the secret passages. They befriend the guards. They make you open the gates yourself, believing it was your idea all along. This is the essence of psychological manipulation, making the target participate in their own exploitation. The first technique we'll explore is called gaslighting, and it deserves special attention because it's perhaps the most psychologically destructive form of manipulation ever documented. The term comes from a 1938 play called Gaslight, where a husband systematically manipulates his wife into questioning her own sanity. He dims the gas lights in their home, but insists they haven't changed. He moves objects and claims she misplaced them. Slowly, methodically, he dismantles her grip on reality itself. Modern gaslighting works the same way. Someone denies things they clearly said. They insist events happen differently than you remember. They tell you you're too sensitive, too emotional, too crazy to trust your own perceptions. Over time, you begin to doubt everything. Your memory becomes suspect. Your feelings become invalid. You become dependent on the manipulator to tell you what's real. Technique number 2 is denial of obvious reality. This is gaslighting's closest cousin. The manipulator directly contradicts clear facts. You saw them flirting with someone at a party. They tell you it never happened, that you're imagining things, that you're paranoid. The key here is confidence. They don't hesitate. They don't waver. Their certainty makes you question your certainty. And in that moment of doubt, they gain power. Technique 3, trivializing your feelings. You express hurt or anger about something they did. Instead of acknowledging your pain, they minimize it. You're overreacting. It's not a big deal. Why are you so dramatic? This technique serves 2 purposes. First, it makes you feel ashamed for having emotions. Second, it trains you to suppress your feelings in the future, making you easier to control. Number 4 is withholding. The manipulator deliberately refuses to communicate, to explain, to engage. They give you the silent treatment. They become emotionally unavailable precisely when you need them most. This creates a desperate need in you to restore the connection. And in that desperation, you become willing to compromise, to apologize for things you didn't do, to accept unacceptable behavior just to end the painful silence. Technique 5, countering. Every time you share a memory or perception, the manipulator presents a different version. That's not how it happened. You're remembering it wrong. They don't just disagree with your interpretation. They attack the foundation of your memory itself. Over time, this makes you chronically uncertain about your own experiences. Number 6 is blocking and diverting. You try to have a serious conversation about a problem in the relationship. The manipulator changes the subject, accuses you of bringing up old issues, or suddenly becomes the victim. Why do you always attack me? I can never do anything right. The conversation gets derailed, the original issue never gets resolved, and you end up comforting them instead of addressing your concerns. Technique 7. Forgetting and denial. The manipulator conveniently forgets promises they made, conversations you had, commitments they agreed to. When confronted, they don't just say they forgot. They deny the conversation ever happened. This is different from simple forgetfulness. This is strategic amnesia designed to make you feel like you're going crazy. Number 8 is projection. The manipulator accuses you of the very things they're doing. If they're being unfaithful, they'll accuse you of cheating. If they're lying, they'll call you a liar. This serves multiple functions. It deflects attention from their behavior. It puts you on the defensive. And it confuses the moral landscape of the relationship, making it harder for you to identify who's actually at fault. Technique 9. Moving the goalposts. You do exactly what the manipulator asked for, but when you deliver, they claim they wanted something else. The standards constantly shift. You can never quite succeed, never quite measure up. This keeps you in a perpetual state of trying to please them, always falling short, always believing it's your inadequacy rather than their impossible standards. Number 10 is the charm offensive. This is how many manipulative relationships begin. The manipulator showers you with attention, compliments, gifts, and affection. They make you feel special, chosen, understood like never before. This is called love bombing, and it serves a crucial purpose. It creates an intense emotional high that you'll spend the rest of the relationship trying to recapture. Once you're hooked, the manipulation can begin in earnest. Let's talk about technique 11. Intermittent reinforcement. This is one of the most psychologically powerful manipulation tools ever discovered. The manipulator alternates between kindness and cruelty, warmth and coldness, presence and absence, in an unpredictable pattern. Sometimes they're wonderful. Sometimes they're terrible. You never know which version you're going to get. Psychologically, this creates the same effect as a slot machine. The unpredictable rewards are far more addictive than consistent ones. You stay in the relationship, constantly hoping the next interaction will be one of the good ones. Technique 12, triangulation. The manipulator brings a third person into the dynamic of your relationship. They might compare you unfavorably to an ex, flirt with someone in front of you, or constantly mention how much someone else appreciates them. This creates jealousy, insecurity, and competition. You find yourself trying harder to win their approval, proving your worth, competing for attention that should already be yours. Number 13 is isolation. Gradually, subtly, the manipulator cuts you off from your support system. They criticize your friends. They create drama with your family. They monopolize your time. They make you feel guilty for wanting to see other people. Before you realize it, they've become your entire world, and you have no one to turn to when you need perspective on the relationship. Technique 14, playing the victim. No matter what the manipulator does, they find a way to position themselves as the injured party. They had a difficult childhood. They're under so much stress. You don't understand how hard their life is. This technique weaponizes your empathy. You end up feeling sorry for them even when they've hurt you, excusing their behavior, taking care of their needs while yours go unmet. Number 15 is guilt tripping. The manipulator makes you feel responsible for their emotions, their problems, their happiness. After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me? If you really loved me, you would. I guess I'm just not important to you. They transform reasonable boundaries into acts of cruelty, making you feel selfish for having needs of your own. Technique 16. The double bind. The manipulator creates a situation where you can't win no matter what you choose. If you do A, they'll be upset. If you do B, they'll be upset. If you ask them what they want, they'll say they shouldn't have to tell you. You're paralyzed, unable to make the right choice because there is no right choice. This is a form of psychological torture that leaves you feeling perpetually inadequate. Number 17 is word salad. When confronted with their behavior, the manipulator responds with a confusing mix of circular logic, contradictory statements, and irrelevant tangents. They overwhelm you with words that sound meaningful, but ultimately say nothing. You leave the conversation exhausted and confused, unable to remember what you were even trying to address. Technique 18. Future faking. The manipulator makes grand promises about the future. They talk about the life you'll build together, the changes they'll make, the dreams you'll achieve. These promises keep you invested, keep you hoping, keep you waiting. But the future never arrives. The promises never materialize. You're perpetually living for a tomorrow that's always just out of reach. Number 19 is breadcrumbing. The manipulator gives you just enough attention, just enough affection, just enough hope to keep you hooked, but never enough to create actual intimacy or commitment. It's a trail of breadcrumbs that leads nowhere, but you keep following because each crumb suggests there might be more ahead. Technique 20. Hoovering. This term comes from the Hoover vacuum cleaner, because the manipulator tries to suck you back in after you've attempted to leave or establish boundaries. They suddenly become the person they were during the love bombing phase. They apologize. They promise to change. They remind you of the good times. They make grand gestures. Once you're back and they feel secure again, the manipulation resumes. Let's move into the realm of the Dark Triad now. This is a psychological construct that identifies 3 personality traits that cluster together in manipulative individuals: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. Understanding these traits is essential because they represent the core psychology behind many manipulation techniques. Technique 21. Grandiose sense of self-importance. This is a hallmark of narcissism. The manipulator has an inflated view of their own significance. They believe they're special, exceptional, destined for greatness. They expect special treatment and become enraged when they don't receive it. This isn't just confidence. It's a fundamental belief that they exist on a different plane than ordinary people. Number 22 is the constant need for admiration. Narcissistic manipulators require an endless supply of validation, praise, and attention. You become what's called a narcissistic supply, a source of the admiration they crave. When you provide it, things are good. When you fail to provide it, you're punished through withdrawal, criticism, or rage. Technique 23. Lack of empathy. This is perhaps the most chilling aspect of Dark Triad personalities. The manipulator cannot or will not genuinely understand or care about your feelings. They might intellectually recognize that you're hurt, but it doesn't affect them emotionally. Your pain is irrelevant unless it serves their purposes. This allows them to harm you without remorse. Number 24 is exploiting others without guilt. Because they lack empathy, Dark Triad individuals use people as tools. They take what they need from you: your time, your resources, your emotional labor, your body, and feel no obligation to reciprocate. They don't lose sleep over using you because they genuinely believe they're entitled to whatever they can get. Technique 25. Pathological lying. Not all lies are manipulation, but manipulators lie constantly and effortlessly. They lie about big things and small things. They lie when the truth would serve them just as well. For psychopathic manipulators especially, lying is so natural that they often don't distinguish between truth and fiction. Reality is whatever serves their needs in the moment. Number 26 is superficial charm. This is often the first thing people notice about manipulators with psychopathic traits. They're charismatic,
engaging, fun to be around. They tell great stories. They make you feel like the most interesting person in the room. This charm is a tool, carefully deployed to disarm your defenses and gain your trust.
Technique 27. Machiavellian strategic thinking. Named after Niccolò Machiavelli's The Prince, this trait involves long-term manipulation. The Machiavellian manipulator doesn't just react, they plan. They play chess while you're playing checkers. They're thinking 5 moves ahead, setting up situations that will benefit them weeks or months from now. Number 28 is emotional detachment. Machiavellian individuals maintain emotional distance even in intimate relationships. They don't get swept up in passion or attachment. This gives them a strategic advantage because they can make calculated decisions while you're operating from a place of genuine emotion and vulnerability. Technique 29. Cynical worldview. Machiavellian manipulators believe that everyone is ultimately selfish, that morality is a convenient fiction, that the world is a competitive arena where the clever exploit the foolish. This worldview justifies their manipulation. They're not doing anything wrong. They're just being realistic about human nature. Number 30 is the ends justify the means mentality. For Machiavellian types, ethics are situational. If lying gets them what they want, lying is appropriate. If betrayal serves their goals, betrayal is justified. They don't struggle with moral dilemmas because they've already decided that success is the only measure of right and wrong. Technique 31. Impression management. The manipulator carefully controls how others perceive them. They present different versions of themselves to different audiences. They're charming to your friends, professional at work, loving in public, cruel in private. This makes it nearly impossible for you to get others to believe what you're experiencing. Number 32 is smear campaigns. When a manipulator fears you might expose them or leave them, they preemptively destroy your credibility. They spread rumors about you. They tell people you're unstable, abusive, or crazy. They poison your relationships so that when you finally speak up, no one believes you. Technique 33. Flying monkeys. This term comes from the Wizard of Oz. The manipulator recruits others to do their manipulation for them. They might send friends to check on you, family members to convince you to give them another chance, or colleagues to spread messages. These people often have no idea they're being used. They genuinely believe they're helping. Number 34 is manufacturing chaos. Some manipulators create constant drama and crisis. There's always an emergency, always a problem that requires immediate attention. This keeps you off balance, reactive, unable to think clearly or establish boundaries. In the chaos, they maintain control. Technique 35. Idealization and devaluation cycle. The manipulator alternates between putting you on a pedestal and tearing you down. One day you're perfect, the soulmate they've always sought. The next day you're worthless, a disappointment, a burden. This cycle is psychologically devastating because you're constantly trying to get back to the idealization phase, blaming yourself for the devaluation. Number 36 is reactive abuse. The manipulator pushes and pushes until you finally react with anger or frustration. Then they point to your reaction as evidence that you're the abusive one. They provoke you into behavior that's out of character, then use that behavior to discredit you. Technique 37. Crazy making. The manipulator does things specifically designed to make you question your sanity. They might hide your belongings, then help you look for them. They might agree to plans, then deny they ever agreed. They might do something hurtful, then act confused when you're upset, as if your reaction is bizarre and inexplicable. Number 38 is selective memory. The manipulator remembers every mistake you've ever made, but conveniently forgets their own misdeeds. They can recall in vivid detail something you said 3 years ago that hurt their feelings, but they have no memory of the promise they broke last week. Technique 39. The silent treatment as punishment. This is different from simple withdrawal. This is weaponized silence designed to inflict pain. The manipulator withholds all communication, affection, and acknowledgement until you apologize, comply, or break down. The silence is a form of psychological torture. Number 40 is flooding you with intensity. The manipulator communicates excessively. Constant texts, calls, emails, messages. They overwhelm you with their presence. This serves two purposes. It monopolizes your mental and emotional energy, and it makes their eventual withdrawal even more painful by contrast. Technique 41. Stalking behaviors. The manipulator monitors your activities, checks your location, goes through your phone, shows up unexpectedly. They frame this as love and care. They just miss you so much. They just want to make sure you're safe. But it's actually about control and possession. Number 42 is financial manipulation. The manipulator controls money in the relationship. They might prevent you from working, control all the finances, put everything in their name, or create financial dependence. Economic abuse is a powerful tool because it makes leaving practically difficult, not just emotionally hard. Technique 43. Medical manipulation. The manipulator interferes with your healthcare. They might discourage you from taking necessary medication, prevent you from seeing doctors, or insist you're not really sick. This is especially insidious because it directly endangers your physical well-being. Number 44 is reproductive coercion. The manipulator interferes with birth control, pressures you into pregnancy, or sabotages your reproductive choices. This creates biological ties that make leaving more complicated and creates a permanent connection they can exploit. Technique 45. Pet and child manipulation. The manipulator uses your love for pets or children as leverage. They might threaten to hurt pets if you leave, use children to send messages, or fight for custody not because they want the children, but because they want to hurt you. Number 46 is sabotaging success. When you're about to achieve something important, the manipulator creates a crisis. They pick a fight before your job interview. They get sick before your important presentation. They ensure that your attention is diverted from your goals back to them. Technique 47. Competing for victim status. If you express pain, the manipulator immediately claims to be in more pain. Your broken leg reminds them of the time they sprained their ankle, which was much worse. Your grief can't be acknowledged because they're grieving too, and harder. You end up comforting them for your problems. Number 48 is the false apology. I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry if I hurt you. These aren't real apologies. They don't acknowledge wrongdoing. They put the problem back on you. Your feelings, your interpretation, your oversensitivity. A real apology names the harmful behavior and commits to change. Technique 49. Bargaining. The manipulator negotiates boundaries that shouldn't be negotiable. They want to discuss why you need personal time, why you want them to stop yelling, why you're hurt by infidelity. They turn your basic needs into debate topics, as if your humanity is up for discussion. Number 50 is conditional love. The manipulator's affection comes with strings attached. They love you if you obey, if you perform, if you meet their standards. The moment you disappoint them, love evaporates. This teaches you that you have to earn love through compliance, that you're not inherently worthy of care. Technique 51. Manufacturing dependency. The manipulator systematically undermines your self-confidence. They convince you that you can't survive without them, that no one else would want you, that you're incapable of making decisions or managing your life. This learned helplessness keeps you trapped. Number 52 is information control. The manipulator decides what you're allowed to know. They monitor your communications, control access to information, and create an environment where they're the sole source of truth. This is fundamental to cult dynamics and abusive relationships alike. Technique 53, forced teaming. The manipulator uses language that presumes a partnership before one exists. We need to get you to your car. We don't want to be late. This creates artificial intimacy and obligation. It's a way of skipping consent and creating assumed agreement. Number 54 is the loan shark approach. The manipulator does you unsolicited favors, gives you gifts you didn't ask for, helps you with things you didn't request. Then they use these generosities as leverage. You owe them. You're obligated. You're ungrateful if you don't reciprocate in the ways they demand. Technique 55, discounting your no. The manipulator doesn't accept your refusals. They negotiate, cajole, guilt, or simply ignore your boundaries. They wear you down through persistence until no becomes meaningless, until you give in just to make it stop. Number 56 is typecasting. The manipulator labels you in ways that make you want to prove them wrong. You're probably too uptight to try this. I knew you'd be too scared. They bet on your ego, knowing you'll do what they want just to prove you're not what they said. Technique 57, the unsolicited promise. I'll just walk you to your car, nothing more. The manipulator promises restraint they weren't asked for, which actually introduces the possibility of what they claim they won't do. It plants seeds of doubt and makes you consider threats you weren't previously worried about. Number 58 is too many details. When lying, manipulators often over-explain. They provide excessive, unnecessary information to make their story seem more credible. But honest people typically don't need to convince you. They simply state the truth. Technique 59. Humor as a weapon. The manipulator makes cruel jokes at your expense, then tells you you're too sensitive when you're hurt. I was just kidding. Can't you take a joke? Humor becomes a vehicle for expressing hostility while denying responsibility. Number 60 is infantilization. The manipulator treats you like a child, incapable, naive, needing their guidance and protection. They make decisions for you, speak for you, dismiss your opinions as cute but irrelevant. This strips you of agency and reinforces their position of authority. Technique 61, the just asking questions approach. The manipulator plants seeds of doubt through seemingly innocent questions. Are you sure that's what happened? Don't you think it's strange that? They undermine your reality without making direct accusations, maintaining plausible deniability. Number 62 is the false equivalency. You point out something harmful they did. They respond by bringing up something completely unrelated that you did. Well, you forgot my birthday last year. The behaviors aren't equivalent, but the comparison muddies the waters and deflect from their wrongdoing. Technique 63, rewriting history. The manipulator changes the narrative of past events to serve their current needs. The fights didn't happen the way you remember. They weren't that angry. You're exaggerating. Your shared history becomes unstable, constantly subject to revision. Number 64 is performative remorse. The manipulator puts on a show of being sorry. They cry, they beg, they make dramatic gestures. But there's something theatrical about it, something that feels performed rather than genuine. And critically, the behavior never actually changes. Technique 65, testing boundaries. The manipulator does small things to see what they can get away with. They show up 5 minutes late, then 10, then an hour. They make a slightly disrespectful comment, then a more overtly cruel one. They're calibrating what you'll tolerate. Number 66 is the backhanded compliment. You look great for your age. That's really smart for you. The manipulator insults you while pretending to praise you, leaving you confused about whether you should feel good or bad. Technique 67. Emotional blackmail. The manipulator threatens to harm themselves if you don't comply with their wishes. If you leave me, I'll kill myself. They weaponize your compassion, making you responsible for their well-being in ways that trap you. Number 68 is the loyalty test. The manipulator creates situations to test your allegiance. They might tell you something false to see if you'll repeat it, or ask you to choose between them and your family. These tests are designed to increase their control and your isolation. Technique 69, ambient abuse. The manipulator creates an atmosphere of tension and fear without doing anything you can point to as abusive. They sigh heavily. They slam doors. They give you looks that communicate displeasure. The message is clear even though no words are spoken. Number 70 is punishment through praise of others. The manipulator praises other people in your presence, comparing you unfavorably. They talk about how wonderful their ex was, how helpful their colleague is, how understanding their friend would be. You're left feeling inadequate and competitive. Technique 71, the slow fade. The manipulator gradually withdraws affection and attention without explanation. You find yourself working harder and harder for less and less. The shift is so gradual that you can't pinpoint when things changed, making you wonder if you're imagining it. Number 72 is sudden explosion. After a period of calm, the manipulator erupts in disproportionate rage over something minor. This keeps you walking on eggshells, hypervigilant, never able to relax because you don't know what will trigger the next explosion. Technique 73, the runaround. You ask a simple question. The manipulator gives you a long, confusing, evasive answer that never actually addresses what you asked. You end up more confused than when you started, and the question remains unanswered. Number 74 is selective disclosure. The manipulator reveals strategically chosen information about themselves to create false intimacy. They share deep secrets, creating the illusion of vulnerability and trust, but what they share is calculated to manipulate your perception of them. Technique 75, the martyr complex. The manipulator constantly sacrifices for you, but they make sure you know about every sacrifice. They suffer visibly and publicly. Their generosity becomes a burden because it comes with the weight of unpayable debt. Number 76 is catastrophizing. Everything becomes a crisis in the manipulator's world. Small problems are apocalyptic. This keeps you in emergency mode, unable to think long-term or strategically, always reacting to the current disaster. Technique 77, the pseudo-agreement. The manipulator seems to agree with you in the moment, but their behavior never changes. They say what you want to hear to end the conversation, then carry on exactly as before. Number 78 is playing dumb. The manipulator pretends not to understand things they clearly understand. They make you explain and re-explain, exhausting you while maintaining their claim of innocence. Technique 79, the compliance test. The manipulator makes increasingly unreasonable requests to see how far you'll bend. Each compliance makes the next request easier, training you to prioritize their needs over your own well-being. Number 80 is strategic incompetence. The manipulator performs tasks poorly, so you'll stop asking them to help. They do the dishes but leave them dirty. They watch the kids but create chaos. Eventually, you do everything yourself, which is what they wanted all along. Technique 81, the origin story. The manipulator tells you a tragic backstory designed to excuse their behavior. They've been hurt before, so they have trust issues. They had a difficult childhood, so they struggle with intimacy. Their trauma becomes a shield against accountability. Number 82 is the Phantom X. The manipulator keeps mentioning an ex-partner, keeping them alive in your relationship. This creates insecurity and competition. You're never quite sure if the relationship is really over, if they're comparing you, if you measure up. Technique 83. Erosion of self. The manipulator slowly changes you. They criticize your clothes, your friends, your interests, your personality. Over time, you modify yourself to please them piece by piece until you barely recognize who you've become. Number 84 is the false emergency. The manipulator creates urgent situations that demand immediate attention. This keeps you reactive, prevents you from planning or thinking clearly, and ensures your focus stays on them. Technique 85. Moral licensing. The manipulator does one good thing, then uses it to justify multiple bad things. I took you to dinner last week, so you can't be mad that I forgot your birthday. One credit is used to excuse countless debits. Number 86 is decision fatigue. The manipulator creates endless small decisions and conflicts, exhausting your mental resources. When you're depleted, you're more likely to comply with their wishes because you simply don't have the energy to resist. Technique 87. The contrast principle. The manipulator behaves terribly, then improves slightly. The contrast makes the marginal improvement feel like a gift. You're grateful for basic respect because you've been conditioned to expect so much worse. Number 88 is emotional flooding. The manipulator overwhelms you with intense emotion, rage, tears, desperation. Your nervous system becomes dysregulated, making it impossible to think clearly or maintain your position. Technique 89. The good enough standard. The manipulator convinces you to lower your expectations. No relationship is perfect. You're too demanding. You expect too much. Gradually, you accept less and less, believing that's all you deserve. Number 90 is strategic vulnerability. The manipulator reveals a weakness or insecurity at precisely the moment you're trying to establish a boundary. Their vulnerability derails your concern, turning the conversation to their needs instead of yours. Technique 91. The comparison trap. The manipulator constantly compares you to others, creating a sense of competition and inadequacy. You're not as attractive as their ex, not as successful as their colleague, not as understanding as their friend. Number 92 is the interrupted healing. Every time you start to process the relationship or establish distance, the manipulator reappears with a crisis or a gesture of affection, restarting your emotional clock. Technique 93. Manufacturing gratitude. The manipulator creates situations where you feel you should be grateful. They allow you to see friends, they let you pursue interests, they give you freedom. These are not gifts. These are basic rights being reframed as privileges. Number 94 is the preemptive strike. Before you can bring up a problem, the manipulator attacks you for something unrelated. You end up defending yourself instead of addressing your original concern. Technique 95. Strategic forgetting of their own standards. The manipulator holds you to strict rules, but conveniently forgets those rules when they want to break them. Double standards become the norm. Number 96 is the forced choice. The manipulator presents two options, both of which benefit them, creating the illusion of choice while ensuring they win either way. Technique 97. Positive intermittent reinforcement during separation. When you try to leave, the manipulator becomes the person you fell in love with again. They're kind, attentive, apologetic. Once you stay, the manipulation resumes. Number 98 is the proxy attack. Instead of criticizing you directly, the manipulator attacks things associated with you. Your family, your career, your friends, your beliefs. The hurt is the same, but they maintain plausible deniability. Technique 99. The "you made me" narrative. The manipulator blames you for their actions. You made them angry. You made them cheat. You made them lie. They position themselves as simply reacting to your provocations, stripping themselves of agency and accountability. Number 100 is the reframe. When you accurately describe their harmful behavior, the manipulator reframes it as something positive. They're not controlling, they're protective. They're not jealous, they're passionate. They're not manipulative, they're strategic. Technique 101, alliance building. The manipulator turns your support system against you. They become friends with your friends, confidants to your family. When problems arise, your own people defend the manipulator. Number 102 is exploiting trauma. The manipulator learns your wounds, then touches them deliberately. They know your triggers and use them to destabilize you when you're getting too strong or too independent. Technique 103, the savior complex. The manipulator positions themselves as rescuing you from your problems, your past, yourself. This creates a debt and a dynamic where they're superior and you're fundamentally flawed. Number 104 is token resistance. The manipulator gives you small wins on unimportant issues, creating the illusion that your voice matters, while maintaining control over everything significant. Technique 105, strategic praise. The manipulator praises you precisely when you do what they want, training you like a lab animal to associate their approval with your compliance. Number 106 is the slow revelation. The manipulator reveals problematic information gradually, piece by piece, so you never get the full picture all at once. By the time you realize how bad it is, you're already deeply invested. Technique 107, the emergency contact. The manipulator ensures they're your emergency contact. They have your passwords, they're on your accounts. This practical entanglement makes leaving logistically complicated. Number 108 is future casting. When you're upset about present behavior, the manipulator redirects your attention to the wonderful future they're promising. The present problems get lost in fantasy about tomorrow. Technique 109, weaponized therapy language. The manipulator uses psychological terms to pathologize your normal reactions. You're triggered, you have attachment issues, you need to work on yourself. Your valid concerns become symptoms of your dysfunction. Number 110 is the I'm just honest defense. The manipulator frames cruelty as honesty. They're just being real, just telling the truth. If you're hurt, you can't handle reality. Technique 111, creating chaos before peace. Right before a holiday, vacation, or important event, the manipulator creates a fight or crisis. Your positive experience is contaminated with stress and conflict. Number 112 is the grand gesture. Instead of making consistent small changes, the manipulator makes dramatic one-time gestures. They buy expensive gifts after being cruel, plan elaborate dates after disappearing, make public declarations after private betrayals. Technique 113, the false competition. The manipulator creates the impression that others want them, that you're lucky to have them, that you're in competition for their attention. This manufactures scarcity and desperation. Number 114 is strategic timing. The manipulator brings up serious issues when you're exhausted, sick, or stressed, knowing you don't have the resources to respond effectively. Technique 115, the plural pronoun. When describing their wrongdoing, the manipulator uses we instead of I. We had problems. We made mistakes. We need to work on the relationship. Your singular experience becomes a shared responsibility. Number 116 is the diminishing timeline. It wasn't that long ago. It only happened a few times. The manipulator shrinks the scope and severity of their actions, making them seem less significant than they were. Technique 117, manufacturing mystery. The manipulator is deliberately vague about their activities, whereabouts, or feelings. This creates anxiety and keeps you focused on them, trying to decode their behavior. Number 118 is the eternal potential. The manipulator keeps you invested by showing glimpses of the person they could be. They're almost ready to commit, almost ready to change, almost ready to meet your needs. The potential becomes more real than the actual person. Technique 119. The relationship as hostage. The manipulator threatens the relationship whenever you assert yourself. Maybe we should break up then. Maybe this isn't working. Your needs become existential threats. And finally, technique 120. The post-separation smear campaign. After you finally leave, the manipulator works to destroy your reputation. They tell everyone you're crazy, abusive, unstable. They turn your ending into another manipulation, ensuring you're damaged even in freedom. So here we are, 120 techniques, 120 ways that human beings exploit the trust, love, and vulnerability of others. These aren't abstract concepts. These are tools used every day in relationships, workplaces, families, and friendships all around the world. But here's what I want you to understand as you drift towards sleep tonight. Knowledge is protection. Every technique you now recognize is a technique that has less power over you. Manipulation works best in darkness, in confusion, in that space where you question yourself rather than questioning the person harming you. You're not crazy. You're not too sensitive. You're not imagining things. If your gut tells you something is wrong, something is wrong. Your intuition is sophisticated pattern recognition developed over millions of years of evolution. Trust it, and remember this. Healthy relationships don't require you to be a forensic psychologist. Healthy relationships don't require you to constantly analyze whether you're being manipulated. Healthy relationships feel different. They feel lighter. They feel reciprocal. They feel safe. The manipulative relationship makes you feel like you're losing your mind. The healthy relationship helps you find yourself again. As you close your eyes tonight, release the need to understand why someone would use these techniques. Some people are wounded. Some are disordered. Some are simply cruel. The why doesn't matter as much as the what. What they're doing. What you deserve instead. You deserve honesty. You deserve respect. You deserve someone who makes your life easier, not harder. You deserve someone who adds to your peace, not your anxiety. You deserve to be loved for who you are, not manipulated into who someone else wants you to be. Sleep now. Rest in the knowledge that you can recognize these patterns. Rest in the knowledge that you're stronger than the techniques designed to weaken you. Rest in the knowledge that awareness is the first step toward freedom. The castle of your mind has gates. You decide who enters. You decide who stays. You decide when it's time for someone to leave. Sweet dreams. And may you wake tomorrow more equipped to recognize, resist, and ultimately refuse the manipulation that once held power over you. You're not a pawn in someone else's game. You are the sovereign of your own life. Remember that. Good night.